saying that they like my style. Wanna know how I do it? I smile. While you were out there saying hey, hi, hello, I was getting dressed up in shades of yellow.
Hey.
No.
This is weird. This is like our normal conversations, but we can just see each other.
We're just looking at each other. Okay, right. We have been talking about doing a podcast for how many years?
Yeah, a lot. It's been a lot of years. Since we ran that digital school at the chapel.
What was that, 2017?
Before COVID.
18?
Something like that, yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Do you want to start by introducing yourself?
I'm Emma Marshall. I am the Managing Director of Miss Bush, one of the UK's longest established bridal wear companies. Do you want to introduce yourself, Leah?
No.
Please tell the listeners what it is you do.
I am Miss Bush's marketing manager and I do everything. Anything that you see. So the branding, the website, the social media, email marketing, all the event designs. So just, pretty much everything that looks nice.
So inherently what you're doing is now completely making it clear for any listeners / watchers that I have, when everybody congratulates me on how fantastic our social media is or anything like that, it's actually you. The only astute thing I did was hire you.
Yeah, this is really weird because I'm usually invisible, so it's quite weird to be visible on this.
Well, I think if we are going to do this though, and like finally get the podcast into our sort of like armory, then only really you know the business. Apart from like having to make actually people stop working, like raising Corin, it so well, so inside out. I think you'll be in a really good place to ask me questions, and also most of what we're going to talk about we chat about anyway. So it's just making it more public, which could be dangerous.
Yeah. So the format of this is it's going to just be a weekly chat, and it's just things we talk about, but we're going to share them.
And there is a bit of a structure, a little bit of a structure. This is up for like change, obviously. And all my favourite podcasts also have like a questions and answers edition. So again, if anybody listens and then they've got a question, I think at some point in said format, we could actually direct questions addressed to us, maybe.
Definitely. And also guests.
Guests would be really good, yeah. Guests. Anything that means I can just carry on working from home. I'm actually at home, not at the chapel today, so be good.
Lovely. And so let's introduce the name of the podcast, what we've decided to call it.
I have decided that we should I've wanted to call something this for ages. It's called Lovely Job. Which I do realise that when you see this written down, says "Lovely Job" by Miss Bush, it does look moderately like a product offered by a sex worker. I do realise that isn't, it's not the most obvious thing, but one of the comments that we receive all of the time at the chapel, and I've all of my life, is that people say to me, "This must be a lovely job. Everyone is so happy," and it is. But it, much like any fantasy job, like working in Disneyland or working in TV or film, or anything that you might think looks really, really appealing, it's got many sides to it. There is politics, there's downsides, there is commitment, there is a real lack of work-life balance, there's all sorts of passions involved in it. And also what we're doing is creating retail theatre, so it should look 100% to clients like it is a lovely job, but there is a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, definitely more to it than just putting pretty dresses on and that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's hard work. Okay, so lovely job. So what shall we start with the first section? What's been lovely this week?
Oh yeah, that was like my thought was that what has been lovely this week. So I thought it would be really good to kind of look at some of the things. And I actually subsectioned these, didn't I? I'm just going to have to look at my notes. So what has been lovely this week? Firstly, at the chapel. So what has been lovely at the chapel this week is I've had some amazing clients in, which, you know, we're very lucky. We do get amazing clients. But what I particularly love with any client in a 2 hour arc of an appointment, how you can take people from nervous, nauseous, reticent, scared, suffering from imposter syndrome, feeling that somehow that they're not right, not welcome, not this, not that. And so I had a particular client this week. It was a very funny appointment, really lovely. Someone who is in, as she said, in her fifth decade. So I'm thinking that's 40 something, getting married for the first time and also wanting to have some photos taken. So Leah and I could do an entire podcast on photographs and wedding dress appointments. In fact, we will bookmark that as a thought for what we will do in another podcast. But basically, people want photos. And the first thing I always do in an appointment is try and get everybody's friends to put their phones down and just be like, you leave it alone, I'll do it. And then what people really want is not just photos or not just pictures of dresses, because you can get those off the internet. They want to communicate something. So I have to turn a nervous, nauseous 40-something person who did absolutely fabulous in dresses into a model, and not into a model, but something who can sell a dress, not just to herself, but to, you know, any family members that weren't there, that it's got to be images strong enough that it won't ever cause her a moment to self-doubt her decisions. And you start and you can look at the arc of the photos from the first ones and everyone's going, I don't want to use my hands. Oh, my shoulders. I don't. And they try and look straight down the camera. And I was like, shall we do this, relax your arms, pretend you're holding the marble, look out the door, let's get some light on your face, all of those things. So like, just for the first dress, you're just coaching something, just trying to get a half decent image that someone can go away with. And then as you show people the pictures that you've created and they're looking lovely, and obviously if people suddenly go and then the camera or like do a funny face, you're like delete, 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 they never see those. And you show them and they're like, oh my God, yeah, I look great. And it's like, yes, you do. And then by the end of the 2 hours, they're literally sashaying across the chapel, flicking the legs out, flicking the hair, you know, really working a dress. And that rise in confidence between dress one, shot one, nausea, and at the end of it, where they're kind of literally striking a pose, is fantastic. So that was a lovely thing to reflect on this week at the chapel, and something that I always love to do, and hence why I just take charge of the photography and also the confidence building, which has got very little to do with actually selling dresses, but it's quite a life affirming thing to do, is to kind of take someone from that arc of 2 hours. So hopefully it means they end up coming back and getting a dress from you, but even if you don't, you know that you've really offered a service to that woman for the appointment fee. So it is a kind of, I think it's quite a life affirming, very kind of, you know, female friendly way of trying to coach out that kind of personality out of people. So it's good.
I love that.
That was a good thing. That was a lovely thing at the chapel.
Yeah, I think it shows how much more important of an experience it is than just going into a shop and buying a dress. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, we've used the phrase retailtainment many of time, or like experiential retail, but you know, it really is about just, you know, creating a moment for those people there. You know, we make people jump through hoops to get into appointments with us. You have to fill in forms and fill in quizzes and pay money, and then we check you've done your quiz, and you know, and then you go walk into a place which is quite impressive by yourself with with a stylist, and then, you know, it's, you know, that sort of like awesome kind of weight of kind of cultural and kind of social expectation on brides and wedding dressing is really hard. So yeah, it's a very different thing. So yeah.
Lovely. And so on your bullet points, you've put at the chapel in bridal media.
In
What's so lovely
bridal
in that?
media this week. Well, I mean, the thing is, I keep half an eye on all of the sort of like media channels for bridal. I mean, it's becoming more difficult because basically it used to be that Facebook and Instagram would just show you the people that you followed. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. I literally doesn't seem to be. I actually now have to physically and actively go and look for the accounts that I follow to see, what's been posted, what's happened. Now, one of the original, the absolutely original kind of like bridal media things in the UK is one called Love My Dress, run by Annabelle Beeforth, friend of the shop, and she actually had a really beautiful bride on this week, who actually had one of the kind of dresses that I think is really great. It's Mackenzie and Emilio's non-traditional modern Mexican wedding. It's the top of the Love My Dress feed. What this bride has got a really, really beautiful dress from Izzy Miyake, which is kind of like really deconstructed in that really Izzy Miyake kind of way, like no waist, very almost like just almost like a sculpture. And I just think that that's sometimes quite interesting to see a really different kind of bride wearing a truly different kind of dress and actually brave enough to look at that kind of ultra modern kind of look. So that's what I mean when I say what is in bridal media. So what I've done, and I've actually noticed this, have I clicked like? No, I haven't. Have I commented? No. So that's the first time many of these people will really know this stuff. And I also think we've become over the decade or more, 15 years or however long we've been using Instagram, very lazy at interacting with things. Everybody's very happy to get quite keyboard warrior, and we'll get to that in a bit, if there's something that offends them. You can immediately take a very polar position on something, but you forget to put a gentle compliment out there for someone's going, oh, that's fresh, really interesting. That's a really cool way of dressing for your wedding. And actually remembering to say that out loud as opposed to kind of inwardly thinking that and then just moving on. So I think that is maybe one of the problems with the bridal media at the moment, that none of us are really reacting in that public space.
Yeah, this is true.
Are we going to do that thing where we bet like link in the show notes? Because that would be
Yes.
quite cool, wouldn't it? If we were like show notes, like
Yes,
this
I'll
is
put
the
it in the
post I
note.
was
I'll put it
talking
on my
about.
notepad. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm already looking at it now, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah. Link in the show notes. And then what we probably ought to do, like one of my favourite podcasts, like you can actually sign up to a mailing list. Because, and I don't know how everybody else consumes their podcasts, I'm usually commuting or running. So there is no point where I can stop and make a note of what they've just recommended. So when I remember to, I would get out of the car, stop running, and actually will sign up to the mailing list because I want those recommendations. So I feel like a link in show notes or things we've liked this week definitely needs to like happen. So just as we're inventing this as we speak.
Definitely. I'm the same. I'm usually on the move when I've got a podcast on the go. So, and then you can't remember what you wanted to look for afterwards.
No, exactly. No, so I do think that's a valuable service that we could offer.
Yeah, it's in the notes. Okay, that's lovely. And I do think I totally agree. You are more likely to leave a negative comment about something. Like it's the same with reviews. People, they're so ready to leave a bad review, but people don't really take the time to leave good ones as often. And that's a shame.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like this week, friend of Miss Bush, and like a brand that we've loved for ages, Molten Brown, one of somebody that's worked with us as a youngster, like as a one of our like Saturday staff, actually works in a quite senior role in Molten Brown now, and they've had a new campaign out, and they've been using people like John Cooper Clarke to actually do poems about it. And I actually messaged her and said, oh my God, your new marketing campaign is amazing. What a really cool idea, how this is bringing credibility to this. I wondered how how they might elevate the brands, because Molten Brown have got a lot of competitors now in that frame, with whether it's like Aesop or someone. And I looked at it and I thought that, well, that's really good. And I said, how can I what would be useful for me to do to actually say that to someone? And she's like, could you comment on Instagram? I was like, oh, yeah, I should. Like, it was such an easy thing to do. So dutifully, I went back to the Molten Brown's Instagram and actually put my thoughts on there, which is saying if you're buying a luxury product, you know, and you're really invested and you like the scents, but particularly at Miss Bush, we need that to be something that's quite aspirational, that, you know, it doesn't just smell nice. And also poor old Molten Brown. I mean, we've had that rhubarb and rose there for like a decade, ever since we've moved into the chapel. I mean, so many people have knocked off rhubarb and rose now. It's unbelievable. So it's, you know, I think it's really important to acknowledge, even if you think the brand is a really, really big brand that probably won't listen to what you're saying, you know, a little bit of a, oh, good campaign. Yeah, really good. Really, really kind of inspired. I suppose that's what, you know, we've forgotten to do, basically. I knew this was going to go on. It's never going to be short, is it?
15 minutes already.
Yeah, I know, right? So, okay. So what has been lovely this week in the wider fashion world is obviously the start of awards season. So
Yes.
VMAs, hello, Chapel Row and Get in My Life. Just outstanding, literally. So the VMAs, all the old Hollywood. I mean, I just loved so many outfits there, but Chapel Row at the moment is my, I mean, I'm always a bit late to the party on this. It was late summer now, and I know it's supposed to have been Brat summer, but I feel like my summer is now CMAT and Chapel Rowan. But yeah, so the VMAs was amazing. I really loved the clothes. I thought Swifty had a nice outfit on. Sabrina Carpenter looked really good. So VMAs, and then the Emmys, which was bland in the extreme. I couldn't really see anything to comment on, either in a positive or negative way. But I do look at it all, and I do scroll, and I do feel on a Monday morning when there's been an awards thing, that kind of pressure to, should I be commenting on that? Because I know in the past people have really liked what we've done. I mean, everybody looked nice. I'm not even sure that that's like, I thought Christian Scott Thomas looked nice. I thought basically that was like excellent Mother of the Bride dressing. Put that in the show notes. There was a really good Oscar de Renta metallic dress on Kristen Wiig, I think. So, you know, there was some lovely outfits, but nothing to me was, there wasn't really an Emma Corrin moment. There wasn't an outstanding sort of like moment of, you know, personality and showbiz. So yeah, so that was my wider fashion world. I have looked at it all. I have noted it all, but I haven't actually really commented on it again, which is...
Do you think brides could be adding a sword to their bridal accessories?
Well, actually, somebody did say when I put someone in something quite gothic this week, it was like, oh, all you need to do on that is put a big black cross on it. I'm like, yes, hello, Chapel Rowan, put a big black cross around your neck if you want to, because that also even that circles right back to like Madonna's Like a Prayer video, do you know what I mean, which was kind of like soundtrack of my very early youth, not just my youth, but you know, that's yeah, I feel like, you know, go for the gothic crosses, yes.
Brilliant.
And
you're very...
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say you're very famous for your award show critiques. So yeah. The first Monday in May, so the Met Gala, the Oscars.
I love it. I mean, I'm literally gripped. If only I was young enough to stay up all night and work out how you watch these things live. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I just don't think I have the capacity. I mean, I usually set my alarm on Oscars and Met Gala night to be like awake really, really like middle of the night / early morning to be able to try and get my opinion out there earlier rather than later. But yeah, I feel like that's yeah, it was good. I loved it, but not enough to actually really go out and sort of comment. I mean, the VMAs are just, you can be just bonkers for the sake of bonkers there. But what I'm just finding really interesting, the take. Well, I'm interested, like, just generally in the whole, like, all the cool artists in the world at the moment seem to be women, all, you know, identifiable by their first name. And obviously, because my daughter's in the music business, as a singer-songwriter, I do find that quite fascinating. I think it's empowering, but almost a bit terrified, being like, but there's so many of them now. Is there room for one more? It seems like Adele's taking a break, so that'll be fine.
Do you want to drop in a little plug for Georgia?
Oh yeah, follow.
What's she doing right now?
She is There's a good single coming up. I can't tell anything. I literally, she's like, basically, she's changed her Instagram handle as well. It must be Meek or something, isn't
Must
it?
be Meek, yeah.
Must
That's
be
cool.
Meek. Just follow Must Be Meek. And we will put
And
the
on
link.
TikTok, she's been doing a lot of TikToks recently. Get on
Yeah, I
TikTok as
think she
well.
was doing content night last night as well.
Mm.
So, yeah, TikTok, like, well, we've had a little minor hit on TikTok, haven't we? I still don't even know how to put a single thing on TikTok. And I went to try and put something on stories on Instagram the other day. And I was like, oh, new choices. And I'm like, oh, I haven't actually done that. But yeah, Must Be Meek on Instagram. And we will obviously, again, on our extensive reference list, we will give you all of that. So, and then lovely things that we've had on our blog this week. So we have had an amazing Suzanne Neville dress on our blog, and you always know what pictures Leah's going to feature first because it's two dogs. Two dogs, a bride and a groom. Basically, it's like feeling that the dog part of the team here is going to always feature that one. But just as a general note, I mean, we put our brides and on the blog always, or the website. I think on the blog, I don't even blog sound a thing anymore, but basically, if you, as a Miss Bush bride, submit your wedding pictures to us, we will put an edit of them onto Instagram, but the full story and all of the pictures on under our domain name, should we put it like that? I don't like the word on the blog. But basically, so that should Instagram ever decide it's going to be a platform that charges, or that it goes down, or something weird happens to Meta, or Elon Musk buys it, then we have all of that content and all of your images that you've been so fantastic sharing with us in a place that we own, where we can do all the proper credits, and it's, people can read a sort of more in-depth recommendations and tips and things from your wedding that everybody else might want to actually copy, emulate, or be inspired by, just generally. So that's what I would say. It's not like a specific on our blog this week, but just generally try and click through, link in bio and all that sort of stuff. So
yes, and we also had Miriam in the 166 by Jesus Pero, which is just, that dress has just been so popular, hasn't it?
I just think the 166 is one of those dresses, and they're not very romantically titled, but it's one of those dresses that just really works for our clients. And I've tried to find all sorts of comparisons to try and define our clients, but it's one of those things where it looks amazing on lots of girls, but it's not obvious. So it's a very good way of having a brutal top to a dress, which shows off an incredible face by not distracting with boobs or plunge V's or anything like that. So actually the face frame is brutal. And I think the more brutal the face frame, sometimes the more beautiful the face looks. For any of those that are genetically blessed or ultra disciplined, that cutaway neckline is really good to show off great shoulders and arms, and it has a elongating effect on the arms as well. We will do, note to self, we'll do an entire other episode about my conversations about body positivity and where that meets shallow. It's just a thing. Do you know what I mean? It is just a thing, and we need to really discuss that at depth at some point, because it is a thing. It's got, so the 166 also, so it has a deep corseted cummerband, which not only enhances the waist, but if you're quite petite, weirdly, it sort of grows another 2 inches on your legs again, like you are worth more than your leg length, but it's a sort of girl maths kind of thing. This cummerband adds to your leg length. And then it's got this giant voluminous skirt, which means that as brutal as it is on the top and as plain, that giant skirt gives the romance and the statement, and also allows you to be seen over the heads of maybe 250 people. So you're not just wandering around in a slip dress looking like a bridesmaid. Again, that is another episode right there. So I think it's an incredible dress. It's also very sporty looking. It's very sort of sporty academic looking. So a lot of our brides take their sport as part of their leisure, and and very seriously. So we dress a lot of good amateur sports people and a lot of professional sports women. So that again just really works for that. And also very sporty people, again, add to the show notes for we will talk about this in body positivity classes. But if you are extremely fit and you run a lot, it can tend to be that you've got a very taut, tiny torso at the bottom and not a very pronounced hip. And for good or ill, the preferred silhouette for most brides is still really centered on that old school 1950s Dior silhouette, and which means we have to create a hip bump if there isn't one. So that is why that dress remains so popular. And also you can breathe out, eat in it, and move your arms fully, so it's comfortable. So that is why in one dress it kind of ticks a lot of boxes. And also not many people have it, just us, I think. So it's a very Miss Bush dress.
It is. I think it's very typical of a Miss Bush bride.
Yeah. So that is that's a very good, that's what's been on the blog as well. And then just very briefly, what's been lovely in my life. If my boys ever listen to this, it's my boys have been at a lot for a whole week. So the house has been super peaceful. It's just been me, Marshy, and the cat. The sun's been shining. I've been running by the sea. I have just had a really fun time going all day Sunday, walking all around Portsmouth and Southsea. There's a festival of street art called Look Up Portsmouth, and basically so you can go and watch all sorts of street artists at work creating incredible art, from very kind of naturalistic art to very kind of stylized street art. So I had a wander around Sunday doing that, and then we went out to there's a really cool independent venue near us called the Wedgwood Rooms, or the Wedge as it's known locally, which is one of those places which gives new bands and up and coming comedians and things a really good platform. Saying that, there are some bands that are solid touring bands that go there. But yeah, so I went to a comedy night which is really funny. The comic's called Red Richardson, and he had a really interesting, funny support comedian called Dimitri something. Ukrainian name I will put in. But it's the only time I've ever been to a comedy night where the bouncers had to throw out people from the front row on both the warm-up part, the warm-up comedian and the main comedian, because people just went in there and was just having a chat in the front row, just being really, really annoying, and actually the bouncers actually kicked them out. So that was very good. So my lovely things I've done this week: street art and stand-up comedy. So that's my good things.
People may not know that you've actually moved to Southsea.
Oh yeah, I moved to Southsea. It's my birthday next week, and I'm having a little kind of drinks party, and I've got a photographer coming to it. So and Leah is dropping down to see me again, and we haven't really taken another entire episode. Could be. Last year was such a personally draining year. It was emotional. There was natural disasters, there were family trauma, there was moving house. There's probably a load more stuff if I can think about it. But I found it very hard, nay impossible, to share any of that light-hearted nonsense that I used to share. I just would look at my phone and I don't want to do it. I can't. I just need a complete break. And also when we had COVID, Leah and I spent all of our lockdowns creating fun, entertaining things. I made sure I got up every day and dressed and did my outfit of the day. So I think this year was one of those years where I've moved. I'm actually sitting in a really, really cool house, which has had loads of before and after things going. I just haven't shared it because I've just felt too exhausted, too burnt out. But I am starting to find that ability to share a few things again now. I've booked a shoot, I've booked a birthday party, which is almost a bit of a networking Miss Bush party as well, because it so happens there's a load of fantastic creatives in the city, both working in art and also in the wedding industry. So I have been slightly going around going, hey, my name's Emma. Would you like to come to my birthday party? So then we'll just see how that goes. Either no one will come or it will be absolutely mobbed. So yeah, so my introduction to Southsea, will be coming because it's a very cool place. But I've just been tired, so hopefully we will get some more content out about that.
Amazing. Well, when I come down, I'll definitely be putting it all over the stories.
Yeah. I feel like we've got several episode ideas there on bigger topics, but I think the lovely concept is like lovely job. What's been lovely this week? I do think that is framework seems to be hanging together. I think
It's a really good framework. I think it's great. So but now we've done the lovely things. It's time to move on to things that have been not so lovely.
Well, when I say not so lovely, I don't want to be like. I guess for the same reason that I'm looking at lovely things on on bridal media and not commenting. I've also like had experience in the dim and really in the past about weighing into arguments on social media and getting caught in like those sort of echo chambers of mudslinging and blocking accounts and all that sort of stuff. So like basically like I think things and I raise my eyebrows and I will talk about it with you or I'll talk about it with other people in the media, and I thought, well, actually let's just discuss it. So so what has been less than lovely? Now I always feel super protective of retailers because I know what it takes to be one. And so there's a couple of people at the moment who I think have done reasonably unfair takedowns on retailers that aren't me. So basically, I shouldn't be bothered to weigh in. I should just keep quiet and not mention it. But I'm going to mention it. So firstly, rock and roll bride, Cat Williams. She has been trying on wedding dresses again. So this, I haven't really looked at her feed on Instagram for a while. I haven't really looked at her blog for a while, and I haven't really picked up her magazine. But for some reason, Threads keeps pushing her posts at me. So I don't know what Threads is trying to do at the moment, trying to establish itself as something. So I've been, they got me hook, line and sinker. I've been into Threads a couple of times and read some threads. So she had been to a press appointment, so invited by a PR person to go and try on some dresses at Galia Le Havre. Galia Le Havre are an Israeli mega label. They are very expensive dresses and they were previously stocked, I think maybe at Brown's, and now they've got their own London flagship store. So some good things there for retail. So it's good that big premium brands want to come and open up in London because that enables the entirety of London retail to be a premium retail destination. It's not my cup of tea design wise and not the budget that our brides spend. But it's, I think in principle, it's a good idea that big brand names are opening up flagships in London. So that's good. So they obviously, their PR sent an invite out to Cat Williams to go and try on dresses there. And I'm like, and then she was like, they don't fit. The sizes are too small. And this is shocking. And a big company like that should be able to afford to be more inclusive and so on. And I like the fact that she was quite fearless and quite a pot stirrer on that. And I agree in many respects that the offer in Bridal is confusing with regards to sizing, but I'm going to do an entire episode on that, or maybe even an entire series. However, I really don't love naming and shaming of stores like that. It is very obvious if you look at Galia Le Havre's website, where their flagship stores are, their aesthetic, that they pitch their very glamorous, sexy, expensive, naked dresses at glamour and glamorous wives and possibly like trophy wives and arm candy and celebs, and everything is impossibly glamorous. Now, whether we agree with that or not, just doesn't matter. Whether we think that's right, it doesn't matter what we think. But they have been incredibly clear in their branding who they're pitching at. And just in the same way that if you get a copy of Vogue and you open the first quarter and you look at all the adverts, you know that it's lovely that these handbags and all of these clothes are being put out there to sell you the perfume and the lipstick. You're not necessarily, most consumers can't afford what's in the first half of Vogue, or maybe all of Vogue. So the thing is with Guardian Half, they don't make any secrets about this. They sell sexy dresses for thin people. So I kind of find it a little bit annoying that when knowing that, there's nothing in their marketing that doesn't say not anything different. And you go there and be like, hell, hurrah, it was only sexy dresses for thin people and it didn't do up on me. It's like, firstly, you're not engaged, you're not getting married, and you have made your career out of being body positive and kind of like very inclusive. So it's a bit like, well, it's a very, very easy target, and it's kind of fairly easy to have a go at. And I kind of think it's a bit of a low blow. It doesn't, but on the other hand, I would agree with so many other inclusive points that Kat has made. But I feel for that retailer who's been very, very clear about what they say they do, and that's what they've delivered. And no, it's not inclusive. And arguably, you would, if you put those dresses in a flagship in a range of inclusive sizes, they're just not gonna, we're not there yet, people with body positivity. We're not. Like, I would not wear a butt naked dress, just not gonna happen. I would wear it not for very many reasons, but firstly I would feel incredibly uncomfortable being semi-naked, and also it's not my style anyway. But I just thought that was a low blow, and as I say, nothing to do, nobody's asked me to do this, but it's just like, that's my thought. And it's like, respect that brand is that, and that's what they're putting out there. And really, you kind of know that before you go. So I'll try and think of a comparison of what it is, but it's definitely like, that's not fair, I don't think.
I think the big problem with it, though, is that the general public, don't know the difference between a bridal boutique, an independent bridal boutique like Miss Bush or any other, and a giant flagship for a big designer. Like, they're two completely different things. And people in the comments were acting like they were the same thing, which was also a problem.
Well, I think that's what the thing is that we sort of like get caught in the crossfire then, because it's then the general assumption is that's what everyone's like, and then you just watch a big pile-on of people having a go at bridal boutiques. And I've also seen in another post of Kat's this week how she says that she loves shopping in independent places like Brick Lane and the North Lanes in Brighton. I was like, mate, if you want retail in any form, in any physical form to survive, you can't scattergun us like that, because the challenges that we face as retailers are very, very present and very definite. And I think it's I just think it's unfair. It's not, arguably, with a blog, you're going to have some business costs, but not as many as a physical bricks and mortar place would have. So, and the cost to open a door is phenomenal. And if you think of the Galia Half Shop, for example, as a standalone, so it wasn't part of a giant company, what you don't need in opening week, when you're never going to get your money back on that shop, and for at least maybe 18 months or 2 years, is someone taking it down. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be critical, but I think it's like, but I'd ask the question in a more, sort of nuanced way. Why is this? Did they lead you to believe that this would be a different experience? Was there something in their marketing that said that this was different from how you found it? It isn't. So that was a less than lovely thing. But I feel it's like, I really want to have a conversation about it, and not an argument. And I don't know whether that is possible these days, to have a conversation without it being two binary, polar opposite camps shouting abuse at each other. So a couple of the podcasts that I've been liking recently, but like possibly one of my favourites, The Rest is Politics, got Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart there, and you've got a lefty and a Tory, and discussing things, or calling it agreeing to disagree amicably. So I feel like I'd love to have that ability to have that conversation, and rather than it being just a shouty match.
Perhaps,
and then
a guest for the future.
Sorry.
Maybe a guest for the future, do we think?
Yeah, I guess for the future. I'm happy to be.
She'd
I'm
like
happy to be a guest Well, I'm happy to have guests. So, we will see how that goes, basically. I don't know. I think it would be really interesting to open out the discussion. And also, I did a trade podcast a few weeks ago. Link,
Show notes.
link in show notes. And that was quite interesting because I spoke very much like a trade person and was addressing what I thought to be trade listeners, and actually a bride listened to it and she found it fascinating. And I was talking about marketing and positioning and all sorts of other bits and pieces in there. But her point was, it's like, I don't think we're quite as, sort of hearts and unicorns as the language around bridal used to be, but it's still a bit like wrapped in a mystery, and otherwise people wouldn't feel nauseous when they were coming in for like an appointment. So I think that it is possible to actually, our brides are extremely bright, well brighter than me, really super qualified. They can handle the truth. It's fine. So I think a conversation which is more nuanced, where we explain the financial limitations, the practical limitations of what is possible. I think that's very, very possible. So, and I
think
suppose
that brings us on to. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
That brings us on.
We'll learn not to talk over each other.
I can't see you very well because it's kind of a bit fuzzy, but so I can't see when you're about to talk.
I am going to sort that lighting situation out.
But next time. But I think this brings us on to the next person who's on TikTok, who's also been speaking about these issues.
Yes, Hannah the Fat Bride on TikTok. So, she's another person, like, where part of me is nodding along furiously in agreement, and then part of me is like, you don't understand a thing. You literally do not understand a thing. So I think basically my problem with some of the things that she said is that basically, I think, firstly, she's a wedding photographer. So there is some angle, you could possibly say, for creating notoriety for yourself. So in a field that's very adjacent to what you do, but not exactly what you do. So I think that there's some possible kind of, it's probably quite a smart move to make a name for yourself talking about something else. But her thing again, she's sort of named and shamed a store in a way a little bit more reasonably in the fact that the store had set out the possibility that they were an inclusively sized store, and yet when her experience of it was not that. So which I think it's quite, I don't know whether she had actually given the store a right of reply before she went public with it, but giving a store a right of reply is not as it's not like internet catnip, like actually just going for someone. So I think that the thing that I have a problem with it, she also dismissed, somebody must have said to her, oh, well, it's actually it's not economically possible. It's not, you can't put that in a business plan. And she dismissed that, saying, quoting how many people there are of different sizes in the UK. But there is, in a big thing with this, is that there are two things in wedding dress shopping. Firstly, there's the really empowering experience, is what we talked about at the beginning, which is great, and it's part of people's leisure. So if people are paying appropriately for this leisure experience, then very much like, if you take yourself and 3 people to my bridal shop, for example, or 2 people, I will charge you £50. You will get 2 hours of my wildly experienced knowledge. You will get a glass of very expensive English sparkling wine, and I would expect for your £50 for you to feel like you've had good value for money, and for that experience to be fantastic, and for that to be as advertised. But that isn't it. So if we think of that as a separate experience, that's fine. But at 50 quid, like that's less than going for 3 people going to the cinema. That is less than maybe if you bought 3 glasses of wine of the quality we serve, it probably doesn't even cover 3 glasses of wine in a flash bar or sparkling wine in a good bar. So basically, if we think of that as being one product, is the dressing up experience. It's not enough for me to make a profit. It's not enough for me to stay in business. It's enough to focus people's minds because it's just enough money not to feel like you're wasting. You can't keep dropping 50 quid on appointments. If I put it at £500, I could see why people might start getting a bit pearl clutchy about it. But so that's the one product, which is the experience. And the second product is the actual physical dress itself. So in her comments, I've seen people say, well, that's why I never even went to a bridal shop. I just had someone make me a dress. It's like, you can come into my bridal shop. We can have a lovely time. You don't have to try on a dress. We can just make you one that fits and you don't actually ever have to try anyone on. It's really, I think, that it's this bridal Disney concept that you're expecting for there to be, half a dozen shops that you can go to where you may or may not buy one thing in one of the shops, or you may or may not expect to pay for an appointment. Now, if those were 6 branches of Zara, within about 3 weeks, head office Inditex would shut the whole lot down because they were like, we have just got people playing dress up in our stores. And that is not an experience that is sustainable as a business model, or we will need somebody to buy some dresses. So if somebody came in, it doesn't matter what size dress you are, you can get a dress from me. It'll be perfectly fitted, and there's no upper size limit, no lower size limit. But one has to look at that possibility that you're expecting an entire industry to exist to facilitate a dress in every size for every person to try on for fun without any intention of buying any, and wonder why we think that that's not economically possible. It's not economically possible, but we can make a dress for anybody of any size, very tiny to very plus, to very tall, to very short, to whatever particular thing that you've got going on. But you cannot put those 2 products and services and bundle them into one thing. It's just not fair on retailers to think that is the case. And then the other thing about the inclusive sizing, I'm sorry, but once you get past some of the mid sizes, one tends to find that women do not scale equally. I know I don't. I know that my boobs at 45 inches will measure a size 24 on a bridal size chart. And interestingly, I looked on Rixo's size chart this week because I had a thought about buying a dress, and Rixo's size chart would have that more like an 18. So all of the people that say there was only like 1 size difference between, or 2 size difference, it's more like 3 or 4 sizes different between a Rixo size chart and a bridal size chart. And it's not necessarily because bridal shops are all evil body fascists. It's simply that the strict structured corsetry requires super accurate body measurements, and that is just the way it goes. But it doesn't mean but still people feel judged by one size label or another. But it just means if once you get over maybe an 18, you will find that just the way that women are, you will size differently. So like a little tiny person with a full bust could be a very different size to a tall person with a full bust. As I was just mentioning at the beginning of the podcast, I had someone who was in her 40s. We now see brides of all different ages, and there are very different average sizes depending on the age group that you see. So someone in their 20s, someone in their 50s, very different body shapes. The whole lovely postmenopausal male pattern weight gain is a friend to all of us. So I just think that the idea that the product and the shopping experience are bundled up into one big kind of like ball is very, very unfair, because that doesn't acknowledge the lack of business possibility for that. You would drive us all out of business, and then there is no dressing up experience beyond getting things off Temu or Shein or somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? And look at the ethics of that. So that was another thing. It's just like, again, very happy to do a podcast, very happy to go onto a podcast, be a guest on a podcast and discuss this, because it can be discussed for a full hour, and we can still probably agree to disagree.
So how many dresses do you think that you have in the shop right now?
I
Many-
I know that more in cash terms than I do in actual sample terms.
Maybe 200?
No, more like probably about 120, something like that.
Right. And if you had to have one in every size, how many dresses would that be? Where would we put them all?
I know. I mean, like, and where would that size start and end? You know,
Mm.
and also there is also that thing where, like, I've got big boobs, and I'm going to always use myself for this. I would never wear a dress that plunged to the waist. Just wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? There isn't, like, I would just feel so awkward. It would be very hard to fit. I think I would draw attention to myself for my boobs first. Don't really care, but like I would actually get my naked boobs out for anyone. Do you know what I mean? Just literally, like, I don't care about taking my clothes off, but dressing to make a sexual feature of them is not something I choose to do. So
Mm.
if there was a dress that came and it looked like that, which would look really tiny, I've got some low cut dresses and they look great for people which have got tiny little boobs, which is, you know, I just wouldn't think about buying it in my size.
Mm.
I just don't think we're there yet. So it's, yeah, that can be really, because I know that I'm limited by my own beliefs, but those beliefs they're underlined by most of the women that I see. You know, most people that have got a fuller bust would still rather wear a bra.
Mm-hmm.
People are very weird about their top arms, and particularly the piece of your arm which bends into the side of your boob. And people are also weird about the letterbox section of your body from your belly button down to the top of your bikini line, that bit.
Yeah.
So those are the areas where I, if you were assuming that someone that would maybe size bigger than a 16 or an 18, like, might have a bit of a tummy, then you're not going to buy I would probably not buy a skin tight sample that would be
Mm-hmm.
like people would feel very self-conscious in. Most people also tell me they want to relax and enjoy their day and stuff their faces. So again, you would buy something. So these are kind of like lived experiences. But should I therefore invest a lot of my money in a skin tight dress with a plungy boob line in my size just for people to be able to try it on and go, no, actually, you're right, I don't want it?
Yeah, because
It's
then what do you do with it?
like,
What do you do with it after?
yeah, it's,
So you
yeah.
have to get rid of the samples every year, don't you?
Yeah. And also, you know, so you need to have, to stay as a viable business, not even a super profitable business, you need to get a return on the investment that you've put into the samples. So if you
Mm-hmm.
buy a dress, if it doesn't like generate like at least 3 repeat orders on it, you wasted your money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, I think that's something else we could talk about another time is, having to buy samples every year and then having to sell them off. And that could be a big subject we could talk about. The sustainability of where the samples go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely a thing. It's definitely up. There's a lot there to unpack. And then I think, like, what was my final gripe of the week? I think it's quite a general gripe because it was, there's a trade show going on in Harrogate last week. I didn't go because none of the brands that I stock showed there, and I don't buy Mother of the Bride, Prom, or Bridesmaids, or lots of things that there was no need for me to go there in particular. But what I noticed coming through the feeds of there was a lot of really butt ugly short wedding dresses. And I'm like, I don't know what it is with like people that are designing short wedding dresses. They've got basically a reasonably nice top, and then they put the ivory equivalent of a school skirt on the bottom. And I'm like, that's not cool. It's just short. And it's like, it looks sort of like that they've actually just sort of half finished the dress because they've got all the cut and structure and construction of the top of a wedding dress with effectively what looks like a short lining for the bottom. And so like my sort of like we're doing lots of business for brides that are having multiple days. So if you've got a multi-faith wedding, or you're having a civil wedding followed by a blessing or something, then it does call for more outfits. And I love the concept of more outfits. It's great for the wedding industry and beloved of the Vogue Weddings feed. But right, horrible short dresses though. I mean, yuck. They're not even very nice. And if you want a horrible short dress, then I don't really think that people are going to spend actual wedding dress price for them. So I would advise my fellow retailers to think carefully before investing in samples in them. And also, there is that thing that's been leveled at us for ages. It's like, oh, so much money just to spend for a dress for one day. It's like, my God, it's almost now like people are not just spending money on one dress for just one day. They're now spending money on 5 dresses for like one day, or one thing. So I feel like, again, it's one of those things about price and sustainability which are leveled at us quite strongly as retailers. And then I look at what people are doing and I'm like, okay, guys, we can see that this is now, you're like kind of contradictory to what you said. So my feeling is like, yes, have a lovely little kind of mini dress or something, but please God, don't make it look like some kind of school skirt on the bottom. Can it have some nice shape to it, or some purpose, or some elevated design? Quite a lot of the short dresses, show notes, that we've got in our place are quite different from that. So they're like
the
Danielle,
SJP lace structured.
yeah, June, the unbridled ones. They're like cute short dresses that don't have a ugly bridal top chucked on a school skirt, or quite a nice bridal top, should I say, put on an ugly school skirt. So yeah, I think I would like reflect on what you choose as a mini dress. And I would also say, given the like vast quantity of metallics at the Emmys, if you're going to have a second short dress, go for a metallic, because that genuinely does have some wear again potential, or some rent again potential, or some resale potential. So yeah. Anyway, so that's my slight gripes for the week. So how are we doing on time? I bet that went on quite long.
It's been 56 minutes.
56 minutes is okay.
I think keep it under an hour. That's really nice. So we'd like to hear some feedback if people have enjoyed this, if they want to hear a weekly one. Because we could do this every week, couldn't we?
I think we do. We just don't normally press record.
Yes.
So it would be also lovely if anybody's got any questions, or would like to be a guest. And I'm really happy to look at guests, whether that comes from a bride or bride-to-be, or a former bride, or whether that's any friends in the trade, even competitors. I'm very happy to welcome all comers, bridal media, anyone that feels that they are a spokesperson, or a sort of an objective spokesperson, bridal media, or anybody else related to the wedding industry. So if you want to come on here and we can chat and particularly in a agree to disagree, politely, looking for nuanced chats, looking for a bit more understanding. And I'm also very happy to really just cover very fashiony questions as well, if anybody has them.
Amazing. Right. What do we say to end the podcast?
I don't know. What are your favourite podcasts, and how do they end?
I can't think how they end it. I can't.
Well, actually, basically, the
This must be a lovely
Restless Entertainment says, "See you next Tuesday."
Well, it is Tuesday.
Yeah, I feel like I want to record on a Monday though, so that's going to be an issue. So I've had to skip a yoga class today for this, but I'm okay with that because I'm carrying a little injury. But I feel like we will work that out, as long as we will work out the intro and the outro as we go.
Maybe with some lovely music by
Georgia Meek. Yes, she owes me.
That must be Meek.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you next week.